Welcome to Men's Anonymous, the podcast where men can be vulnerable and open without fear of judgment. Your host, Daniel Weinberg, leads authentic and unfiltered discussions that explore the challenges and triumphs of modern manhood. Join us as we break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and redefine masculinity. Men's Anonymous, a safe space for men to lower their shields and share their inner world without judgment.
So, Richard, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's fabulous to be here, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, where are you right now? What's your location?
Yeah, I'm based in Ibiza in Spain.
Ibiza, Spain.
And you probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Spain originally. I'm from the UK, but we've been living here for about 6 years.
They call it the magical island.
It is. It has a magic. It has an energy that some people try to define, but you definitely feel it. It has an energy like I've never really experienced anywhere else I've certainly lived.
So the famous spot there is the Es Vedra, which they say has a very high electromagnetic field. The
third most magnetic place on Earth, apparently. And yeah, there's lots of things. There's a lot of crystals here. There's the sort of ley lines, connection points. And, I think, look at the history of the place. When the kind of the hippies arrived in the 60s and 70s, they brought a whole different way of being, a way of thinking. And there's definitely power here, for sure. So I'm tuning into that right now.
It's definitely one of my favorite spots in the world, without a doubt.
Yeah. No, I'm grateful every day for living here. Every day.
Okay. So you're not Spanish. Why don't we start with a little bit of your origin story?
Oh, okay.
Of where what your path or journey has been, and then we'll take us to Ibiza.
Yeah,
and then we'll go from there.
I'll do the short version. The listeners
No,
well, it's interesting. Living abroad now, and my two sons I'll talk about a lot. Born here abroad. I was also born in foreign parts. I was born in Kenya in Africa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the 70s. I lived there for a couple of years and then moved to Dubai in the Middle East. This was Dubai, unrecognizable from how it is these days. I mean, it was a couple of buildings along a creek and a port where my father worked. So,
So start with Kenya. Why was your family in Kenya?
Yeah, again, my father's work. He was trained as he was a naval captain, ship's captain. But at this point, he was working within the port in Mombasa, which is kind of the second city in Kenya, and he was working at the port there as a port's pilot, essentially the guy that brings ships in because he knows the local area. So let me see. I think we lived there the first 2 years of my life, and then this opportunity came in Dubai.
So your Kenyan passport?
No. British passport, British parents. Right. So no, I'm not even sure I could. I don't know. Maybe I've never even investigated that. Actually, it might be more valuable than a British passport now.
And so he did something similar at the
in Dubai, exactly. So they were just establishing Dubai as again, in context, it's the late 70s, very different place, but they were sort of establishing, the growth that everyone's kind of seen happen in Dubai. And my dad was sort of a part of the early part of that. And then, a key point, in my life, sadly, my parents separated and divorced when I was around 5.
Oh, wow.
Very, that's as everyone will know, that's a very early point for that to happen. Clearly he's left a lot with me, there's a lot of trauma that hangs on from that for sure. So my father stayed in the Middle East and I moved back to the UK with my mother, and we moved to the sort of southeast of the UK. And, I would only be seeing my father every kind of school holiday, really, at that point.
I mean, this is pre FaceTime, WhatsApp.
Oh yeah, no, there's
zero technology.
Letters.
Yeah, so I have 5 kids that I live separately away from. But I talk to them each individual every single day.
Wow.
And I, see them on a regular, a much more regular cadence than would have been back in the day, just because it would have been very, very challenging to do that.
Very difficult. Even phone calls at this point, international
Very
phone calls,
difficult.
incredibly expensive.
And very difficult as
and
well.
very difficult. Yeah, you have to
very difficult to engage without the visual.
And as a young child, the use of the phone, I just, what's that about? I didn't like that at all.
That's right.
So yeah, that was, clearly a big point in any person's life, and not least for me. So yeah, I moved back to the UK, and then went through school system. As you do, relatively unremarkable, but brought up by a single parent. My mum working very hard as a nurse, in an operating theatre. So I learned, from a young age, a lot of independence, a lot of need for self-reliance.
You're a latchkey kid.
Exactly that. I would come home from school at like 3:30. She might come home if it was a daytime shift at 5. She worked night shift sometimes as well. So she'd have to trust me that, in the early stages, I had a babysitter, of course, but from the ages of, trying to think, again, in context of the 80s, things have changed. Probably from the age of 11 or 12, I would be by myself all night.
Oh, so no siblings as well?
No, yes. So no siblings. Yeah. Key point. Yeah. So, I have step brothers and sisters who I'm very close to, but no, blood, brothers and sisters. So only child. So yeah, it's almost mad thinking about it. I'll be by myself in the house. My mum would do a night shift, not all the time, occasionally to fill in for people. And, I dealt with it. She'd leave me some dinner. I'd have that. I'd watch a bit of TV, take myself off to bed, didn't go crazy. So there's a lot of, responsibility given and accepted, at that relatively tender age. So yeah, a lot of self-reliance. In fact, that's one of my key values is that sense of self-reliance, of being able to look after and take care of myself, which I have to do a lot of.
Self-reliance and / resilience, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. In a stage we didn't really know what resilience necessarily was when you're talking about it at that kind of age. But there's certainly, in many ways, they stand you in very good stead. I'm also very aware of, with some of our values, we can overplay them. And my self-reliance value is one I have to watch. So I overplay it. I can get a little bit distant. I don't call for people for help.
Right.
I don't know. Or can you help me with this? I'll just deal with it myself, which again is a very masculine trait as well. That kind of, I'm going to go into the cave and I'm going to sort this out, work this out myself. So I have to really notice that in myself and nudge myself forward that there's some people here who can help me, who love me, who want to support me.
Yeah. It's that male default of, I need to show strength as well. Like asking for help is a sign of a potential weakness.
That's it. The classic, you're driving around, maybe pre-GPS, lost. Should we ask someone for help? No. I'll find it. I'll work it out. Until your wife is getting more and more mad with you. Just ask someone for help.
Yes.
It's a classic.
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to talk a little bit about your relationship with your father and your mother growing up and what it's like today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sadly, my mother passed away 3 years ago. Okay. My father's still going. He's 80, relatively fit. I have to say, could be healthier. This is the somewhat of the challenge when you get to a certain point in life. And I've got young children and I've got an aging parent, and you're kind of like looking both ways, right? Trying to take care of both, which can be a bit of a stretch. So yeah, just for context. But yeah, brought up by my mother, kind of as I kind of alluded to, would see my father mostly at school holidays. Importantly, we actually we'd always do a long summer holiday. I'd spend most of 4 or 5 weeks with my father, stepmother, and stepbrothers and sisters. So I kind of had that.
Where
in Spain. So they owned an apartment in the north of Spain, and that's where we'd do our summer break. So we'd all troop down there on a long road trip, like a 2-day road trip this is the Costa Brava in northern Spain. Yeah. And we would fight like cats and dogs in the car. And then that would carry on when we got to the place, because it's like, there's no space around. I was used to my own space. You can imagine growing up an only child. And then all of a sudden I've got share, space, toys, food.
Different rules.
Exactly. They're like a different culture. So again, when you're 11, 12, 13, trying to work that out for yourself takes some doing. And, again, this is the 1980s, not a lot of emotional intelligence necessarily from my father and my stepmother as well. It was just like, just get on with it.
Did you feel that you were treated equally as your step or half siblings?
Yeah, step siblings. Yeah, mostly. I think they did a good job of not trying to, show preference and, even the opportunity to come on this holiday, which we did like 5 or 6 years back to back. I think that was an important part of that, because it could have been Richard's not going to come on this, but I was, invited to join in. And I think that was a really important part of my growing up. Now, fast forward many years, I have a really good relationship with my stepbrother and 2 stepsisters. We got on exceptionally well. So,
relationship with Dad? How's the
relationship with Dad? Oh, we're getting into it now, Daniel. I mean, look, I think we've come a long way. I would say interesting. Obviously,
did you blame him for your parents' separation?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But internally, never really having it out, never really expressing that anger, that angst that you're holding as a young man.
So you never spoke to him growing up and say, why did you leave, or what happened? Why did you abandon me, or any of those?
No, not direct, not in that sort of direct kind of almost confrontational kind of way. Here's the thing, and I want to be, I am now fully of my own mind. Obviously, my mother was very, very hurt by the whole separation divorce process. So I had her side of that in my ear every day.
Oh, she was angry about it.
Very angry. Very.
Oh wow.
My stepmother was, she couldn't actually use her name for about 5 years. It would
Your
be
stepmother, the mother.
My mum couldn't use my stepmother's name, which is Vanessa. She's like, it's the other woman. It's the other woman. And that, for me, it was like, well, maybe this is just normal. Of course it's not. But having that all the time,
very difficult.
That kind of angst. Really hard. And what I did? Classically, did you feel guilty when you were enjoying the company of your stepmom and that family? Were you torn? Like, I shouldn't be enjoying this because my mum. No, I don't recall feeling guilt about that, or maybe that faded when I got into my sort of kind of teenage kind of years. I don't remember that feeling. I think there was a sort of a when I was like 7, 8, there was a sort of a torn, what am I doing here? What's kind of going on? But, you just, as a kid, what do? You just play. You just, what are we going to do together then? Oh, let's play. And we were all very competitive, very athletic. So we'd be racing each other, playing tennis. And that was kind of a way of expressing, I think, something to ourselves and each other was kind of that. So I kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed being around these step siblings. I don't remember a guilt. Actually.
And what do you think you missed out on not having a father figure in your life as you developed into a young man?
I mean, one can say I missed out on a huge amount, and one can say I've actually developed into exactly the person I should be.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, not a question I dwell on all the time, but if you could rewind time, which we can't, would I want to change that? Would I want to have been brought up with a very present mother and father? Yes,
of course,
because that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and that's my choice.
Obvious.
Yeah, and I think I developed pretty well, kind of considering, because my mother put a lot of effort and work and focus into trying to get me as much as I could. She was a nurse, not terribly well paid, but we'd go on holidays. She'd get me what I could have. I never felt a deep sense of lack.
Okay.
There was, I definitely had a sense, and this is, again, this is something you hold as a young person, that, well, I'm not going to now ask for that thing because I don't think we can afford it. When you're unaware of that, you might be asking and pushing. I want this, I want that. And then you get to a certain point. And I can't tell you what age I was, but I think there's just a certain sensibility.
You become aware.
Yeah, exactly. And awareness comes in. I'm not going to ask mum again for those trainers because I know I'm not going to get them. So you just, again, compartmentalize, probably push it down, process it in my own way. So yeah, that's kind of where we.
And did your relationship with your mother move from let's say a mother-son normal, like traditional relationship to you're almost like a partnership in a household where there's the male and the female, and she needs to rely on you for things.
Yeah.
You almost become like friends, partners, like beyond mother-son. Like you're the mother, you take care of me. It was like, no, you're taking care of each other then.
Oh, I for sure. I think what I know from probably like 15, 16, providing especially emotional support all the way through to sadly when my mother passed away, and I'd be speaking to her most days, if not every day, from in most of my adult life. I mean, I never lived that close to her because she's in a small town. I was, I wanted to get away from that small town. I went away to university. I moved to London. I've traveled around the world, all these things that I wanted to do. And so that creating or giving that emotional support was definitely part of the deal, I guess. I know she wanted it, and I was like, you know what? I can give that.
Yep.
I can give that.
So you, career-wise, college, moved to the Big Smoke, went to London, and what did you pursue? What was your thing?
Yeah, so I did a degree in politics at university, which was not a stepping stone into being a politician. That's not what I wanted to do. I just really enjoyed the study, and what I really wanted to do was move to London. So after a few trips, I lived in Spain for a bit. I actually lived in Australia for a year, which is amazing. And then I was like, kind of all over Sydney and Brisbane mostly.
Okay.
Yeah. Had a great time. Traveling around, doing all sorts of jobs. I was Santa Claus at David Jones' department store in Sydney. That was the peak. That was very well paid.
What year?
You know what I've got? Right, get this, Daniel. It was 1996, Christmas 1996.
Yes.
And if the Australian newspaper, which I guess is still going.
Yes, it is.
Christmas Eve, 1996, I appeared on the front page of the Australian newspaper in my full Santa regalia.
Oh, you're going to need to send me that.
I'll try and find it. I've got a digital image of it somewhere with this little girl kind of on my lap screaming at me. Like, like, who's this guy? and her mother. It's just a brilliant, because I remember this photographer turning up, taking some photos. And when this happened, he just had this massive look on his face going, oh, I know, this is the photo. And I wake up the next day, and I was this girlfriend I was with at the time. She goes, check this out. And I'm on the front page of the newspaper.
Unbelievable. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So yeah, all sorts of jobs to keep me in Australia. And then I had this, it's time to get serious now, Richard. It's time to, find a career, which I didn't really have. And maybe just going back to your early question about having a father figure around, maybe that, who knows, does that galvanize you a bit more in a direction of thinking career a bit earlier on? I was a bit more, I'll just do what I enjoy. And then I did get myself into a place of, no, it's time for career. So I started in the advertising space. So I got a graduate job with an ad agency, loved it, found I was good at it, whether it's like talking to clients, thinking about strategy, just being creative, a lot of those kind of elements, nothing to do with my academics at all. And just found talking about tribe a little bit, I found my tribe. I found a group of people I really liked hanging out with. It was very, very sociable. So this is now the 1990s London.
It's a fun industry. Very fun industry.
Super fun. So we worked hard, play hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It was that classic balance. Sometimes the balance was off, but that's kind of where it was. And again, a very different time. You were in the office, obviously 5 days a week, no matter what. So often Thursday nights were a particularly popular night for everyone to go out, parties and
exuberance.
You had to be at your desk 9 o'clock on Friday, whatever state you're in. You just had to be. Yeah. Sometimes you might not even get home, but you had to come and be there. Is that presenteeism was insane, but that was the thing. That was the culture. So yeah, a lot of fun. And I stayed in that industry for best part of 25 years.
Oh, wow. That's serious.
London. Yeah, a long time. So worked in London. I worked in Eastern Europe for a while, traveled the world. So I had global roles in the latter years, and always had a sense of, I like this, but I don't think it's me. So imagine that for 25 years, holding on to I'm enjoying it, but there was always the but in my head. And I was very fortunate to my last employer, a big advertising holding group called WPP. They invested in coaching a lot to support their senior talent. And I worked with a couple of different coaches, went on a couple of leadership programs, and it just opened my eyes, my mind to the human condition, to our potential. Oh, this is incredible. I love this. And I'd never really studied any of this stuff, bits and bobs within politics and psychology, but not in depth. And I thought maybe there's something in here. Maybe I could create, my next step out of this. And I put myself through a coaching training program over a course of a year. So invested my own money behind it and found that I loved it. And again, it appeared to play to my strengths. So then it was like, so what do I do with that? And it was at the same time, my wife and I.
What was the appeal to you of coaching, that the actual discipline, I guess, of coaching? What did you see in it that obviously sparked something inside?
Yeah, it was the way I was able to sit with either another person or people in a team setting and really support their development. Because when I traced back, when I looked at the 20 odd years I spent in the advertising business, when I felt really fired up by things, I was maybe training people, I was bringing people together, I was holding workshops. That's when I was really like, I love this. It went from I quite like this fun job to I love this. So I have these peaks. So it's really useful. And this is a process I get my clients to do, is look back at where you've had those peak moments and go, what was going on there? You may be really happy. You were really proud. You were fulfilled. What was going on?
Yeah.
And for me, it was that. So I started to join the dots a bit and go, okay, well, if I do this training program, and then maybe I could create something. And I guess the other itch to scratch had been I'd spent 25 years working for a relatively big business. Others, the man.
Yeah.
Why not do something for yourself, Richard? Why not step out? And
which is always a big move.
It is. And, I think I wasn't without fear. I wasn't without apprehension on it. And I kind of went in and out for a while. Am I going to do this? Am I going to do this? And I'm so thankful that I did. It's almost that when you're about to commit to something, it's noting the fear is going to come up. And that fear is really important. When you see that fear, it's like, right, I got to keep going. Because the fear isn't in the way, the fear is the way. That's why I've got to go at that.
But it also, you're also at a stage of life where it's not just Richard. It's you have a wife, you have kids, you got.
Well, this is pre-kids. This is pre-kids.
Okay, but you have a wife. You got some other responsibilities. It's not just I'm going to go for it.
Oh yeah, this wasn't an out of hand. I'm just going to change everything for me. It was, it's a deep conversation. But I think, again, very fortunate to who I'm married to. My wife's amazing. I'd supported her through a career change. She went from actually the same industry I had been in, advertising, to teaching. And we'd done that a few years before. And then it was kind of my turn to go through my transformation. And she was hugely supportive. And at the same time, because these things worked hand in hand, we moved to Ibiza when I stepped out of my corporate job and into running my coaching business, exactly the same time.
Okay, so what was the catalyst for you moving to Ibiza?
Yeah, the catalyst for that was the desire to start a family, and that was our thing. And we'd struggled, to be frank. We'd struggled for it had been 6 years of disappointment. And anyone listening who's been through any kind of infertility journey, IVF, it's
very challenging,
incredibly difficult. And I do look back on that and go, wow, it's amazing that we stayed together through it, but we had that belief that we'd get there in the end. And so I guess we're in that kind of, London, it doesn't seem to want to happen here. This child that is we know he's going to come at some point, doesn't want to come here. So let's change the environment a bit. And Ibiza, as we spoke about at the beginning, just a beautiful place. We spent holidays here. Didn't know it exceptionally well, but we had a sense of the nature and the calm and the energy. And we thought that could be the place. And, change things around in terms of some of the IVF process we were using. And guess what? Within, I think, a year and a half of being here, Noah, our oldest son, was born here on the island. And, again, I feel blessed every day that we made that decision, and he's here and was joined 3 years later by his brother, Rafa. So he got 2 beautiful boys.
I like the names.
Yeah, thank you.
Noah, Rafa. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I want to go back to how do you think the dynamic in which you grew up with your parents separating at an early age, being raised by a single mother, latchkey kid, etc. How did that influence the relationships you had, both your romantic relationships and also the forming of your, let's call it your male tribe, the mates, because it sounds like you're very self-reliant, not wanting, you don't need anything from anyone else. You had to work it out yourself. How did that influence you? Like the forming of friendships and male friendships, going into your, later life, and also the way you selected your female relationships.
Well, maybe start there first. I think, good, healthy relationships, female relationships, girlfriends from, typically when, like 17, 18, that kind of point, which I think is quite, I don't want to say normal, quite standard. I got married for the first time. So I've been married and divorced when I was 29. And that was actually quite early in my peer group. I think I was the first kind of one of us to do that. And my wife at the time, she was 26. So we were quite young, but we'd met, fallen in love, having a great time living in London. And we were like, well, this is what you do, right? This is what you do next. And the thing I look back on, and look, we divorced after 5 years of marriage, 7 years being together, as amicably as you can. I would say it was her energetic push, but she absolutely read it correctly. So I do thank her for that. It was a good call, and thankfully before we had kids. And I think the challenge was, again, going back to the not growing up with mother, father. I didn't really know what a healthy marriage should look like. I had no real sense. Again, a lot of this is thinking back on it. I had no real role models.
I was about to ask who was your source?
I just don't think I had that. You have, okay, there's a bit, maybe your friends, parents, maybe some family, culture. But I'm not sure culture is always the best role model. Popular culture, I mean. So I look at it and go, I just didn't have, again, to my self-reliance bit where it negatively impacted me. When things started to go a little bit off, I didn't ask anyone for help. I didn't go, oh, Dad, I'm having this weird sort of thing with Nikki, my ex-wife. Give me some advice on that. I just didn't have the capacity to do that. Neither with my friends, and I have really close friends. Most of them from kind of university time. There's a bunch from there. Then there's some sort of key ones from the world of work, and now lots here in Ibiza. But at the time, that with that group, I didn't feel I could reach out and get help and support for what was starting to go on. And then, 6 months later, we were kind of like, that's it. We're kind of done. So I spent most of my conversations were explaining to my friends and my family, oh, by the way, this apparent very happy marriage that you remember, it's done. And people were, properly shocked. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a classic, looking from the outside, it looks rosy. And on the inside, and what had happened? We'd grown very stale because we didn't have what I have learned in the last few years, thankfully, is this the need for the polarity between the masculine and the feminine.
Absolutely.
That push, that like energy that is created from it. And I do look at my first wife, Nikki, amazing woman. She was probably more in her masculine. And that probably did something to my masculine. I think we just became friends. And that is not a basis for a romantic relationship. When you get to that friend place, when the juice has gone, and I couldn't see it coming. I think there was an opportunity, if I'd known some of this stuff or had some of that input, maybe we could have done something about it. But we got to a point where we're just cohabiting as friends now, aren't we? So that's
glorified housemates.
Yeah,
basically.
that's where we got to. And again, amicable split from that. Now with my current and always wife, Danisha, we have this amazing masculine, feminine polarity. She's way more in her feminine. So, all that's connected, all that sense of love and that sort of thing. And I know now where she needs me to be is in my masculine. Because if I go and try and match her where she is, again, the juice is gone. She needs me to be where I am. And I'm not talking about, again, I really want to be careful with the words, those unhealthy, negative views of masculine. I am
of course
appalled by all of that. But being that healthy, conscious masculine is an amazing place to be. And that is where, the feminine wants you to be, to hold space for her, to make sure so that she can feel safe to be herself and fully express herself. And that is, and I'm so conscious about that. That's the dance. That's where we're in.
But I think you just hit the nail on the head there. It's the polarity that needs to exist. Yeah. But it's the two of you being very consciously aware that the polarity needs to exist, and therefore making sure that you facilitate or create that polarity, and make sure that you don't neutralize it by swinging to one way or the other too far, to thinking you're trying to that's what's needed or required. Where I think you've you said it very clearly. So
but that that's a consciousness that I got to in my essentially my 40s, mid 40s really. It took me a long time to get there. But thankfully
I would say mine's more like mid to late 40s. Yeah. It takes a long time. I think I always say men are like fine wines. They just take a long time to get good. That's all.
Well, the young man's mind isn't fully developed until 25 plus, right? Whereas the female mind is sooner than that. I mean, that's the neuroscience of it. So it's like, you're looking at, as a young man in your early 20s, you're probably not making great decisions now because your brain isn't even fully formed yet.
Yes.
And we got to sort of understand, I think, more of that.
So we switched careers. You came and you undertook coaching. Why don't you took us through that? And then I want to jump into where you are now with your Mojo's men's group, which is
great.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, 7 years now, leadership coach. So I coach people in, relatively senior people, often within organizations, within business. I also coach people who own their own businesses as well. And I say relatively senior because, still coaching, obviously it's an investment, and it tends to be the people in the more senior positions who get that investment. And a big part of what I try and do is how can we democratize coaching as well? I'm very passionate about that. It's obviously, yes, your senior leaders should have access to it, but why not people in more junior positions in their career so they can ask those questions and work things out for themselves and really sharpen their own performance too. So I do, there's kind of two parts, I guess, to my business, Mojo Leadership. There's the one-to-one coaching work, and there is leadership development, which is generally in a kind of a workshop training kind of environment. And when that gets really, I get really fired up is where organizations say, yeah, let's do the workshop and we'll do some individual or group coaching on the side of it. So people can talk about, this is what came up for me when I developed this new mindset around how I can work with this client. I had these doubts came up for me and a fear. Now, Do you want to, is someone going to express that in a workshop of 20 people? Maybe, but probably not. So if you can do that on an individual basis, then you can start to get to it. As I talked about, when the fear is there for a reason, what's behind the fear? Is it true? Is it real? Is it useful to you? So a lot of this really.
So it becomes it's like a coach / psychologist in a way as well, because you sort of you've really got to dig into what's playing underneath it, because there's obviously some life experiences like you've had, which without knowing that, how do you really direct traffic?
Yeah. And I think I'm certainly not trained as a psychologist, but a lot of what you will do as a coach when you're training, and then it's the developing yourself as you go on. I think the great thing about this career I'm in now, it's not one and done. It's constant. I'm learning every day. Every session I have with somebody, I'm learning something. Every time, and then I'll listen to a particular author or a podcast or an article that just sharpens my thinking around something. So you can be of service. So that's what it is. I'm being the best service I can be for those clients who turn up in my room, here on Zoom mostly, so they can get the outcomes that they're really striving for. And often, here's the thing, at the start of a relationship, they're not necessarily sure of those outcomes. Or the outcome is, oh yeah, I definitely want to go there. I want to go in that direction. I want to go to Island A. And then actually, guess what? It's actually Island B. I want to go over there. That's what I want to do. And maybe there's some big change they want to create. Maybe they just want to get really, they want to stretch themselves a bit more. Maybe they want to get clearer about a decision they've taken or about to take in their life. And, I think a good coaching relationship can just give you that space, that basis to have the full conversation, to get everything out. And maybe, I'm not a purist coach. I will give direction where it's required and advice, and say, this might help you. Have you thought about this? And then you say, yeah, great. Thank you. And then I can see people take it away. And that, talking values, another of my key values is about making an impact. And I see the impact, the work I do now, it's immediate. In the moment, I see impact.
Right.
And then I might work with someone for 6 months. And then 6 months after that, they might email me and say, hey, Richard, I got that job. Or I'm doing that thing that I felt I couldn't do, and I'm doing it now. The impact, the hit I get, the dopamine hit I get from that is wonderful. So I've definitely found, my second career, I've found my true passion. And in that, my purpose, I think, and it'll keep developing.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Very, again,
amazing.
I've used this word a lot already, but very grateful for that and the people that helped me get me on that path and keep me on that path. So yeah, it's great.
I've had various stages of my life coaching, and I have to say, it's always been of value. It's like having the opportunity to have an outsider who doesn't really have any vested interest. Like it's like someone gets to look into your world and just give you feedback on on where you can optimize, where you can iterate some of your iterate some of the processes, or just refine your thinking, change mindset. There's a lot of things you can get out of it.
Yeah, I think that's it, because we fundamentally, we have choice. We always have choice. When we, thinking from our context of living in the societies that we live in, we have a lot of choice. And it's remembering that. Sometimes we become blind to the fact we still have choice in this situation. How I respond versus react in the moment to when someone says something to me is my choice. How I feel about it is my choice. No one makes you feel anything. It's like you are deciding that for yourself. So a lot of it, when I work with people, it's just when you get really present, and I use things like, guided meditation techniques in the coaching room. When you get really present, you can create this space, spaciousness where you think, oh, everything, life's on top of me and it's all coming at me. No, you get the choice to go and create it. And you see people, oh, right. Yeah. Okay. And then, and so the impact that I see from that, and whether it's change people make, if they find more joy and happiness in their life, what a thing to do. What a thing to be able to do.
Absolutely. That's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a gift. Like I said, let's talk about the men's group, which is where all this is the build up.
Yeah. So
we're on the Men's Anonymous podcast, and you're doing some really great work in the men's space. So talk us through the creation of that and what it is and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so it's been almost a while in the making, but it feels like a very natural step. So I've been part of a few men's groups online over the last kind of 3 years that I found very powerful, supportive, really aided my growth.
So can you maybe describe how those online groups work?
So this is led by a coach and facilitator. This particular one, a guy called Bodie Aldridge, who's based in Australia. Great friend of mine, and he invited me into a couple of these groups, and again, it's a whole different type of masculine relationship, because a lot of these guys, I've never met them physically in the flesh, but I know them extremely well, because the way you can feel very comfortable very quickly, very safe to share kind of, this is what's going on for me, this is what I'm scared about right now, these are the fears that are coming up, this is I'm not feeling good enough to do this thing or that thing. And then the support you get in the group. And it's not, oh, mate, do this, do this, do this. That's the key. It's not advisory. It's the space to speak it out.
It's a bit like Alcoholics Anonymous, Men's Anonymous. It's effectively,
it really is
just being able to openly express in a safe place, safe space, without worrying about judgment or someone telling you, well, you're doing the wrong thing there. It's more having an audience.
Exactly. And look, people do ask me, so why are these men's only groups? Why aren't you doing it mixed? And there is a place for mixed groups, absolutely. But the power of the men only group is that vulnerability that men will step into. Because when you introduce the feminine into the group, there's a change. There's an energetic change. There's a shift. I don't want to let my guard down. Maybe I've got a mask or two I'm wearing and it's not necessarily, it's not about a physical attraction to the feminine that's coming, but there's just an energetic change. It's hard to describe, but it's real. And then when it is a men's only space, there is more openness. There is more, I can just say this. And what you get this amazing brotherhood of, oh mate, yes. I'm glad you said that.
This is a Zoom. This is a Zoom video. Everyone connects. How does it work?
Yeah. So fast forward a bit. So the one that I'm now running, the Mojo Men's Group. So I started this earlier this year. We're about to start the second iteration of it. It's a Zoom room. So 12 guys in the room, facilitated by me. It's a 90-minute call, and it's the key again with the masculine. A level of structure is important. So some of the structure is it's every other Friday. It's the same time. So people know this is when I'm going to turn up. It's in my diary. So there's a commitment to it.
So how long's the program?
The first one we did 6 sessions. So over 12 weeks. The next one is going to be probably 8 sessions. And then I'm learning, Daniel, as I go. It's like, well, how long people want this to go for. Is it kind of a indefinite kind of thing, or people kind of like having I'm going to do it for 8, then there's a bit of a gap, and then I can start again. That seems to work quite well, again, for the masculine, not that just goes on and on and on.
So if any of my listeners are interested in joining one of these programs, how do they get in touch with you? Like explain the process. Is there a website or something they can sign up to?
Yeah. So if you go on mojo-leadership.com, that is my website. So that's the coaching workshops, and there's a men's group section. And in there I have kind of the flyer for the next available one. You can also check me out on Instagram at Mojo Richard. I talk about it on there too. And then if people feel compelled to it, this is something I want to step into, we'll have a call. Because I'm very keen on, the dynamic of the group.
You're curating. You need to curate. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not about pushing people away. It's just making sure they understand.
The mix is right.
Yeah, the mix is right. And to get the most from this isn't a sit back experience. This isn't, well, Richard's just going to talk for 90 minutes. I'm going to learn something. No, we're going to get in. We're going to talk in wider group. We're going to talk in pairs. Yes, I'm going to share some thinking. We're going to do a meditation. So I get everyone really present through a meditation. And guess what? I always prepare, and I say to the guys, look, I want to have a structure for you because I know it's important. Sometimes, Daniel, I'll get through half of what I prepared because the conversation is so rich and so flowing. There is no pressure on me or the group. We must do this. We must do that. It's not a leadership program like that. It's a men's group. So we go where the energy is. We go where the energy is. And if someone in the group is really sitting with something, really struggling with something, let's give our brother some support. And, I believe a very safe space is being created because I've seen the level of emotion that has come up for some guys in the group. You can see just the unburdening of this thing I've been holding so tightly. And I feel within this group, I can let it go. And again, it's like just feeling that energy and no one going, oh mate, don't worry about it. Don't cry. Let it. No, none of that. We just sit and we wait for our brother to be ready to move on. And then I'm just holding that space and just, okay. And then we can move through it. And, some guys have had some big things come up and then messaged me after saying, I haven't spoken about this in years. I haven't.
So this is what I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the impact that you've observed with some of the participants of the course.
I think it's, obviously not going to go into specifics of what's
the feedback. What's the feedback they've given you in terms of what they've got out of it?
Well, when people use the word transformational, I think, it's not my words, it's their words saying this is the best thing I've signed up to this year. This has been transformational for me. I'm looking at my life in a different way. I feel I can deal better with the ebbs and the flows of life because of this supported group. And it's that classic thing. It's, hearing maybe another man speak about a challenge, a problem, a stress they're having, and you going, oh God, it's not just me. Someone else is feeling this too.
I think that's the point. I think most men, in general, are not good at talking. They're not good at opening. Yeah. They're not great at it. So what ends up happening is that everyone's having very similar experiences, but not sharing the wisdom from those experiences.
Oh yeah.
So it's just individualized as opposed to, how a tribe would normally, operate, where the wisdom is shared or whatever, and
exactly.
feel like you feel like you're not alone for one, and you also feel like this is not out of the usual. This is like, we all experience this, and knowing that gives you a sense of comfort.
That's it. And it's sort of like we have this ability as men again to compartmentalize, to dance around the outside of feelings. We can talk about the weather, the sport, etc. till the cows come home. But to get into how am I feeling now, that's where the absolute power is. That's where the truth emerges from. Now, how am I feeling right now? I feel scared. I feel alone. I feel I haven't got what it takes to do this. I feel a failure.
Yeah.
This sort of stuff.
That's a big one.
That's a big one, right? And then it's not about the group going, oh mate, it's okay. It's going, okay. And what can support that? And maybe where's the truth in that? And you get this, really gentle but important prodding from the rest of the group about, okay, what's really going on? So, really big shifts that are happening. And, I nearly didn't put this group together, Daniel. I was in my own head, a fear of, they won't come, they won't show up.
They won't take it seriously.
They take it seriously, exactly. And oh my God, so wrong. And I'm so pleased. Again, I got some good nudges from some important people in my life. Go, just do it, Richard. Just do it.
So I think this is obviously a very scalable, exercise that you could definitely roll out. And I generally think a lot of listeners and men will be very keen to sign up for something like this.
Right.
It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think, I almost feel every man should have some kind of group or tribe like this in their life. And
100.
It doesn't have to be an organized, paid for men's group, but you need something which beyond 100%. It's beyond beer and football. It's deeper than that. You can just go in. Maybe it's a men's circle. Maybe it's a group. Maybe it's AA or another anonymous type of group. Just to have that space to kind of do it. The other thing I do while we're on groups is here in Ibiza, I actually run a monthly breakfast for men, which is physical together. We're all in the same restaurant together. And that's been amazing. That used to be, I basically took over a networking group with a couple of mates and we changed it. We said, this is, I don't think the island wants this. I think the island wants this. So we went from 15 guys banging on about their businesses and it was a bit boring. Then we kind of changed it around. At its lowest ebb, we only had 5 guys coming. We thought, oh, maybe we've got it wrong. And now it's grown to, we've got 100 people in the community and we sell out. We only have 25 seats each breakfast and it sells out within an hour.
So when's the breakfast?
It's the first Thursday of every month in Ibiza, in a place called Santa Eulalia in Ibiza.
First Thursday of every month. Okay.
Yeah. So it's that regularity. Yeah. No, please come and join us when you're on the island. Just like keep
definitely try that
regularity. And again, the feedback we get from that is, guys, thank you for putting this together. It's the most important thing I do for me every month. I've got family, I've got my business to look after, and there's all that weight. And I can come here, I can be myself, and we share a bit, and just again get that sense of I'm not on my own, which is I think the crucial thing I want to get across to any man. You're not by yourself.
And what's the format of the breakfast?
The breakfast is, again, with 25 guys, it's quite a big group. We just all get to share. We call it a 90-second share. And the key question we ask is, where are you at? Not necessarily what you do. Where are you at?
Right.
And look, you can talk about your business or your new thing you're creating, or you can talk about your family, or you can talk about whatever.
Personal.
Where are you at? Yeah. Where are you at?
Makes sense. Okay, so to wrap it up, I usually do a set of 5 questions that I ask my guests. So I'm going to just shoot away.
Right.
Who would you like to say sorry to, given the chance?
Oof! Oh my word! I start with a deep one. Look, I think, given the chance, I would say sorry to my mum. Just for the last 3 months of her life, I wasn't around as much as if I could change time, which we can't, I would have spent more time with her. So that does still sit with me. So I'd say sorry to her.
Okay. What are you proud of being or doing in your life?
I'm proud of the life I've created, actually. And that's, being a father, being a good husband, building a sustainable business here in Ibiza. That's what I'm proud of.
When did you receive kindness whilst needing it most and expecting it least?
Yeah, again, it's going to be related to my mother and her passing. So we had the funeral. It was mostly, her friends and family obviously came, but 2 of my best friends came, and I wasn't sure they were going to come. And my stepbrother, sorry to include him, and my stepbrother and 2 of my best friends came, and having that support because they were there for me. That was like, wow. And I had no expectation. Again, that whole self-reliance thing of mine was like, no, you don't have to come. But so happy to see them. Really needed them there.
Mm. What did your mother or father teach you that you frequently remind yourself of?
I think, probably mostly from my mother, as I've explained, spent most time with her. Just, I think, good, solid values in life, just how to treat people. If I really saw it, I saw a lot from her, but that really just how to, she was a nurse, so she was a carer by design. So I think that caring, that kindness. Yeah,
that's like a real giving role, then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one. What is Richard's superpower?
Yeah, and again, brilliant. I've really realized this in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. It's bringing people together as a host of a men's group or a facilitator of a workshop, and allowing them, creating an experience that they want rather than forcing it, if that makes sense. So yeah, that kind of generous host approach, I think.
I can see that. It's an absolute pleasure talking to you. I think what you're doing is phenomenal work. So keep on pushing that. And I generally think that anyone who would participate in any of your programs would benefit hugely, even if it's just turning up to one of these breakfasts. But I think doing such a program, you can't lose. I generally think you just can't lose. So I just want to say thank you for doing what you're doing. And I love that, you happen to be very passionate and, you're in your flow when you're doing it, which is just the best place to be when you're doing something like that, because the participants are just going to feel that energy.
Well, that's it. It's the energetic exchange. People know when you're, inauthenticity comes across really clearly. So when you're in your flow, as you say, when you're in your authentic, this is where I want to be. People feel that. That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah,
I'll feed off it.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. It's been an absolute pleasure. Love the chat. Great questions. Thank you for holding the space.
And we will catch up when I'm in Ibiza.
We will. See you soon.
Awesome.
That's it for this episode of Men's Anonymous. Thank you for listening. For more information on the Men's Anonymous podcast, including resources discussed in the show, visit mensanonymous.com. Join us next time as host Daniel Weinberg provides a non-judgmental space for men to voice their innermost feelings and thoughts.